Here we go. Episode 1 of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Episode recap. Spoilers, of course. Spoilers for the first episode. Just premiered yesterday for me, for you guys this past Friday. And it's ready to, it's on Disney Plus and you can go watch it now. You definitely should check it out. Already getting good praise from critics and fans everywhere, of course. And the first episode, the only thing that surprised me about it was that it really was kind of like a setup. I don't know why that surprised me, but I mean, that's what it should do. It should really just set up Sam and Bucky and where they're at after the big war against Thanos and everything that happened, you know? Where are they at and what's going on in the world? That's the best thing about these series, is it really allows Marvel to expand on how the world is changing post-Thanos, post-Snap, post-Blip, whatever, and post-Tony, post-Steve. Like, that's really, this one explores, in the way that I think that Armor Wars, starring Don Cheadle, will explore a world post-Tony Stark. This show is very much exploring the idea of a world without Steve Rogers in it, what that looks like. But right off the bat, this is a deep. It's very deep and it's just very relevant for literally everything that this Earthbound cornerstone of the MCU should be touching on. And like I said, and that's the best thing about Marvel. You know, I can be bitchy about people being like, fuck the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but then they loved WandaVision, or vice versa. But that's Marvel, man, is that they have something for everybody. The way that and I'll go into it in more detail when I talk about Marvel in a few weeks at the big special, about how they do this kind of genre mixing thing where they just kind of dive into and delve in these different genre and tonal little corners of their universe, and how every one of them is different in their. And for me, this is my show, man, because this is, aside from like a lot of the big space stuff that I love, and the I mean, I suppose Tony's Cornerstone was always a favorite. Wakanda became an immediate favorite Cornerstone. This is really my favorite Cornerstone. Is like this thriller, this action thriller Cornerstone that the Captain America movies always used to brush on and be embedded with. That's this Cornerstone. It's the Cap Cornerstone, the Earth, social, political kind of issues and conflicts that this corner of the MCU deals with. And you have two protagonists that really just embody these themes. You got Sam on one side. I've been waiting for a show to really touch on how black people in America are really treated. You know, Black Panther was just a jumping off point for that with the villain of the film, with Killmonger. But this is already diving into areas that I knew it needed to, and I wasn't sure if it was going to do it right away, and it did, and it's great. Because, I mean, literally that bank scene is a good example. The bank scene is a perfect portrait of, like, systemic racism, right, in America, the way that they're declining this loan. And literally, like, when I think of that, sometimes I think of, like, when I think of systemic racism, I think of, like, the way that African Americans are treated in the banking system, and the loans, just the housing system, all that stuff. And literally the portrait of it that I always think of is like a bank scene where someone's getting denied, and that's literally in this episode. So it was perfect in that regard. But also just the overall episode deals with the idea of Sam being the guy. He's supposed to be the next Captain America. The mantle was passed to him, and instead he feels there's a legacy behind that shield, a burden behind that shield that doesn't belong to him. Steve's legacy should be honored, not taken on by somebody else, in his eyes. So he's trying to do the right thing right off the bat. He's just trying to protect that legacy by not tainting it with his own, I guess, with his own agendas and his own missions and his own his own conflicts and everything like that. He's just trying to not take on what belonged to Steve and only Steve in his eyes. And I love that scene. Don Cheadle is in this episode. I don't know if this like I said a while back, Don Cheadle was going to show up in this, and I thought that was really cool. And he shows up right away in the first episode. I don't know if he's going to show up again. I hope he does, because he's going to... It's kind of similar for what, in a way, you know, James Rhodes is the successor to Tony Stark in a lot of ways, too. So it's a similar thing. It's the idea of a black man taking over this mantle. The Iron Man mantle, the Captain America mantle. And that is a very interesting and relevant point. And so right off the bat, that is just deeply expressed in this episode, and it's going to be a recurring... It's going to be the main central theme of this. Because while he's fucked over by the loan in that scene, the big obvious betrayal was from America itself at the end of this episode. The way that they literally shit all over what he was trying to do and give that shield, which he believes doesn't belong to anyone else, to some random person, right? Not only that, the guy literally steals Sam's speech. The speech he says at the end is literally like the same fucking speech that Sam says in the beginning, but he uses it in a different way, with a different outcome, right? So that was just insane, man. And then on the other side of it, we have Bucky, who just embodies this idea of a man who needs a fight. You know what I mean? It's great to see that he's pardoned by the country, but then has to make amends for things. That's really unbelievable character development, right? We need this for Bucky. He didn't really get a chance to breathe after he came back. You know, it's been one fight after the next, and he finally has a chance to breathe. And I think that he finds that what he really wants is a need to fight for something else. I think when she asks him, "What do you want?" he says peace, and she says, "You're lying." It's true, he is lying, because he's very much... Marvel always plays with characters like this, and I think Bucky's a really great example of it in this main arc of the MCU. We've seen similar characters like it. You know, Punisher, Frank Castle's a good example of that. You know, a man who needs a fight. He needs to be fighting for something. That's purpose for him. It's similar with Bucky. I think he's going to find that he still needs to be fighting for something. That's why he's going to evolve into a hero. That's what his evolution is going to be. For Sam, it's evolving into the next Captain America and what that means. But it's also interesting to think about how Cap alone kind of never really needed a sidekick. He had sidekicks. He had Sam and Bucky, but he didn't really need them so much physically. He could handle things. Bucky, yes, he does. He's kind of a super soldier too, though, isn't he? But mentally, he can't handle it. So I think they're two halves of a whole that is the next Captain America, in a way. Their partnership will probably be the legacy of Captain America and the future of Captain America. I think, yes, Sam must evolve into being the wielder of this shield, into being Captain America, but he's going to need Bucky there to complete this whole. You know, they're two halves of a whole, I think. And Bucky, for me, is a fan favorite character of mine. I just love that what he's been through, his arc in this whole narrative is just really heavy, man. And it always bothered me that him and Natasha Romanoff, Black Widow, didn't have more of a dynamic before she died, because they have a lot in common as characters. They've been through shit and been tormented by other people's agendas and used, and all, you know, they just had a lot in common, and I thought they were like clear dynamic, even relationship possibly that should have happened and didn't. But Bucky, we can just see it right off the bat here, what he's dealing with. Just guilt is heavy, and it cuts deep, and it's something not easily healed. And he very much embodies this idea of a PTSD-ridden, ex-soldier. And I think when he does suit up again, it's going to be on his terms. That's the thing. It's never been on his terms. It needs to be on his terms. And that's what this is about for him. I love the two sides of this, and our two main characters. The whole picture of it is how people are used in this country. People, especially people in their kind of positions, and don't get to really choose for themselves how best to approach their purpose, and what they want to be, and how they want to act, and what they want to fight for. This is what we're gonna get to. But yeah, just the big bombshell at the end there, that betrayal is the country betrays Sam, gives that mantle to someone who has no earthly reason to have that mantle. And then we can talk about it. Let's talk about who this is. Who is the new Captain America? Because he is a character that is in the comics, and he is important. And so this is a new character, and the character's name is John Walker. This has not yet been revealed in the show, but if you just look it up a little, you can see who it is. It's John Walker. And John Walker in the comics is someone who does become Captain America for a time, but then becomes his own hero called U.S. Agent. And whether or not we see his arc in this season from the new Cap into U.S. Agent is yet to be seen, but the same thing in the comics. Is not really somebody who deserved the mantle. The government, it's their puppet, their poster boy kind of Cap that can do whatever they want him to do, It's also unclear in this. I also don't know the backstory of the comics enough to clarify this, but John Walker, whether or not he has powers similar to Cap, super soldier powers or not, I don't know. We will see. That's something I should have looked up a little more. If the comics, I don't know if it's like that in the comics or not, but that's something we will learn very, very quickly. And that's who's wielding this shield. It's not very deserving. But, we'll see how things progress, man. That opening scene, just fantastic. Very reminiscent of the Captain America, the Winter Soldier, Captain America 2 opening scene, right? Sam just doing what he knows, right? Fighting these battles, similar to how Steve was just doing what he knew at that time, just fighting, just getting back in the ring and just keep fighting. And not only that, they fight the same villain in those two scenes. So, in case you probably didn't notice if you didn't really pay attention, but the bad guy that Sam fights in the opening scene of this episode is the same bad guy, like a mini villain that this MCU has. Same bad guy that Cap fights in the opening scene of Captain America 2. Same guy. The villain's name is Batrock, and he pops back up, and he's still doing his same old shit. He's a criminal. He's also skilled combat, and he gets his ass beat by both Steve and Sam, and it was a cool nod. There was a lot of similarities between the two opening scenes. Yeah. Yeah. That guy. And so also there's for Bucky, I think we're wondering what his evolution is, fully what his evolution is, who he kind of evolves into, and the moniker he takes on. Because the idea about the idea that's presented right away in this episode is that he's not the Winter Soldier anymore. He's not. He's trying to move on from that moniker, from that what comes with that moniker, like all the baggage he's trying to literally change and grow. So what is next? And in the films, we see that there's a brief glimpse of a potential next step for Bucky into the White Wolf, right? In Wakanda, the kids called him that, and it was a potential next evolution for the character. And then a lot of people lately have said it's not going to happen. The White Wolf in the comics is not Bucky Barnes. But I think there's a possibility still that he's the MCU version of the White Wolf. That's his next moniker. That's the hero that he becomes. I just think a lot of the stylistic choices on the part of the costume designing kind of hints at it, for me anyway. And we haven't seen him in costume yet in the actual show, but I've seen pictures. And just the color scheming and it kind of looks like they could still put him in that. That's the next step, the next direction they take the character, still possible, I think. And yeah, just a really great setup episode. That's what it was. And so this one's a little harder for me to wait for every week. I just really enjoy the characters and the area of the universe, this cornerstone of the universe. I just really I want the next episode. But yeah, so just other than that, I wanted to maybe break down a couple other things for people who maybe weren't aware. But other characters are going to pop up in this as well. Sharon Carter's returning. She is a character from the Captain America films. She's the great niece of Peggy Carter, Steve's eventual wife, right? Love interest. Sharon was a potential love interest for Steve that naturally did not need to play out. And she was integral in the films, and now her character is going to evolve into a new direction, and of course the series allow for expansion on the characters and stuff. So this is great for Sharon Carter. She's going to pop up. And then also Zemo. Zemo is in this. Okay, Zemo was the villain in Captain America Civil War. He's the guy who framed Bucky Barnes. He's the guy who revealed that Bucky Barnes killed Tony Stark's parents. He's the guy who broke up the Avengers, right? That was Zemo in Captain America Civil War. He is potentially the main villain of this series, obviously. And it begs the question who the hell that guy was in the middle sequence of this episode, right? There was a big scene where the Flag Stompers, I think their name is, the organization. Terrible name, and Sam makes fun of it. The Flag Stompers. There's one guy who came out with the money, and he jumps down. He's tossing people around. He clearly has some kind of super soldier powers of some sort. Don't necessarily think that that's Zemo. Could be. When did he get powers? Then there's still questions, So maybe there's not the kind of theories that WandaVision had, but there are fan theories that are going to pop up about who's who and what's going on and what's what. It's still Marvel, right? But Zemo being in this is great, I think, and he's finally going to wear his comic accurate costume in this. So that's really cool too. But all in all, I can't wait for next week and for the weeks that follow, and we will keep talking about it. For the most part, I break down the episode, It's not so much here's my theory about this, or my theory about that, No, I'm just breaking it down, And of course, what my opinion about it is, and I think it's great. I really do. I think it's really good right now. Not great, but it will be great. This, as the show progresses, easily.